Baseball show for Friday, November 17th is brought to you by the fine folks at BetMGM. On the docket today, we found a weird quirk in the awards voting that we're going to get into, which is just hilarious. Also, a funny comment from the general manager of the LA Angels, Perry Manassian. The A's got a unanimous vote from the owners to move to Vegas in 28, so we can talk a little logistics there. Also read something fascinating on Twitter/X about the Cal Quantrill DFA conundrum in Cleveland. So all that and more. Aram Layton, hey, how are you?
Hey, good, man. I see the ocean just I see some waves behind you on the back right. A little
Cascading.
subtle vacation flex, but also you forgot one important headline. Christopher Morel is the human equivalence of gold, according to, I think, those that believe that this is the word of the Cubs front office. That's the thing, is like, what if he didn't really say that? And I don't know,
Yeah.
but we're gonna get into that as well, because Christopher Morel can be the centerpiece for any player you want in baseball, according to some. I know you will properly attribute that, but again, just seeing those waves behind you and the back right shoulder there, just a little pocket, see some palm trees.
Yeah.
It looks nice, man.
Here's the agenda. Just flew into Santo Domingo last night. Been number one on the baseball bucket list to get to the Dominican Winter League. Been number one on my dad's baseball bucket list as well. So we're here and we're just ripping through games. So today, recording pods. Friday, we're going to La Romana to see Toros del Este. I'm so excited to watch Yermin Mercedes play baseball live again.
Oh, let's go.
Which will be great. Saturday, we're going to Estrellas Orientales, who I think are managed by Fernando Tatis Sr. in San Pedro de Macorís. And then Sunday, we're going to Tigres de Licey. So a big day in Santo Domingo on Sunday, and then back to Estrellas on Monday. So week of the Dominican Winter League. I'm very excited. So I'll put my scouting safari hat on, and I'll let you know if I see anything. Cool.
Or it depends who you are, or you could put a fedora on, and it depends.
Sure, man. You could do that too. Hey, so we have the awards coming out, and we're talking before the MVPs are announced. Stunner, I think it's going to be Ohtani in the American League and Acuna in the National League. And I think both of them are going to be unanimous. But we'll see if there's any weird first place vote thrown to Mookie Betts from somebody in Los Angeles. I want to get into this off the top because the BBWAA, the Baseball Writers Association of America, will put out a voting breakdown, right? This guy was unanimous Cy Young winner in Cole, but Snell got 28 of 30 first place votes. Okay, which other two guys, got first place votes? Who snuck onto the ballot with 1/5 place vote? Chris Martin. And then my favorite thing is who voted for who. Yainer Diaz got a second place American League Rookie of the Year vote. Who voted for Yainer Diaz? So I went on the dive. I went on the BBWAA website, and I found this out. So sit back and enjoy, because we were talking about this when we were on the road, and you were like, dude, this has to be on the podcast. You ready?
Yes, I made it a note. Dude, I was staying at your place, and you have a setup to where like we can hear each other. Like, you were in your bed, I'm sleeping on the couch, and you're shouting to me, guess who voted for this person? Guess who was the only person to vote for this person? I'm like in bed, my phone's like over there, and I'm like, okay, this is the funniest shit I've ever heard. I need to make a note so we don't forget this. And I made a note in my phone, literally, which it takes a lot once I'm about to go to sleep to get me to get up, go grab my phone and make a note. And it literally said, talk about the local reporters sneaking in votes for their players. And it won't disappoint. It just does not disappoint. And this is not to disparage any of the writers, because again, it's usually, it's not a first place vote. Generally, it's usually like, oh, well, this guy was good, he's close to home, I'm going to sneak him a fifth place vote. But the problem with this is there's a lot of incentives based on where you finish in Cy Young voting. We talked about it with Walker, right? Like, Walker would have made a lot of money if he finished in the top 3, could have arguably won the Cy Young, finished 4th. And that's where some of those, oh, let me throw Chris Martin a 5th place vote, can make a big difference when you have the point accumulation here. So yeah, let's dive into this, because one is funny, but 2, I do think is something that needs to be discussed a little bit more, because the home bias, I think, really does skew, maybe not first place as much, but it does skew second, third, and fourth place. And if you don't think that matters, tell that to the players and the agents who, end up making a lot less or more, depending on how things fall.
Yeah. Also, I love you calling out my apartment complex, who sold me on a 1-bedroom, but it is a glorified studio apartment because the wall doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. So, yeah, we had a great conversation in quote unquote separate rooms. But here was the breakdown. I've got at least one example for each award. Start with Rookie of the Year, which was announced on Monday. AL Rookie of the Year. Gunnar Henderson won it. He was unanimous. Okay. But Yainer Diaz of the Houston Astros got 1 second place vote. It was Jesus Linares of Pelota Brava. That's an affiliate of the Houston Astros. The team, there's always a team and a market affiliated with each of these writers. And Jesus Linares is one of, I want to say, 2 Houston writers that does get to vote for this. NL Rookie of the Year. Nolan Jones of the Rockies got 2 second place votes. One of those second place votes was from Patrick Lyons of DNVR Sports, which is a Colorado Rockies affiliate. He's based in Denver. American League Manager of the Year. Bruce Bochy got 3 first place votes to take away from Brandon Hyde. He's the only guy that took votes away from Brandon Hyde. Of the 3 first place votes, one of them was from Jeff Wilson of Rangers Today. Dusty Baker got 1 second place vote. Dusty. 1 second place vote. It was from Jesus Ortiz of Our Esquina, based in Houston, Texas. The National League Manager of the Year. I'm 4 out of 6 in right now. National League Manager of the Year. Okay, Skip Schumacher won it. Craig Counsell got some votes. There were some guys that got some votes, including David Bell, the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. He got 1 vote. The 1 first place vote that David Bell got was from Mark Schmetzer, who's a freelancer. His publication is literally at large, but he's based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Craig Counsell got 5 first place votes. 2 of them were the 2 Milwaukee-based writers that get to vote for NL Manager of the Year. American League Cy Young. This is turning into a rant. The one that jumped out with me, because Cole was obviously unanimous, how the hell did Chris Bassett get a 3rd place vote for AL Cy Young? It wasn't from Toronto. Guess where it was from? Manolo Hernandez Duen, who's based in Oakland, California. He still has the Oakland bias for Bassett. And then NL Cy Young. Blake Snell was 2 votes off of unanimous. He got 28 of 30 first place votes, one of which went to Logan Webb. Okay. The other went to Zach Gallen, who coughed up that first place, coughed up the second place with a really rough end of the season. Who was the 1 Gallen voter? It was Barry Bloom of Sportico out of Phoenix, Arizona. Gallen also got 3 second place votes, with the other Phoenix-based writer supplying one of them. We have yet to see the MVP voting breakdown, but that is at least one concrete example from every single awards tally of a guy showing explicit bias towards someone that they cover or have covered. Insane.
And like I hate providing like a issue without a solution. That was fantastic stuff, by the way, Jack. Fantastic stuff. But I got to lock in on one spot, and it's the AL Rookie of the Year. And fortunately, Cream rises to the top. Tanner Bybee finishes in second. But when you have a unanimous Rookie of the Year, the second place finish, every vote matters very much. And let's not forget here, top 2 finishers earn a full year of service time. This is very important. I can promise you Tanner Bybee's psyched on finishing second. Of course he wants to win it, but finishing second because he gets the full year of service time. That is huge for your ability to hit free agency and for the amount of money that you can bring in sooner rather than later. And honestly, 1 or 2 more votes one way or another, Tanner Bybee might not have that second spot. It could have got snaked away from him. And I think that's the craziest part of it, because you can't justify Yainer Diaz, who had a phenomenal second half. Don't get me wrong. But Tanner Bybee had a 2.98 ERA in 142 innings. Like, this is not even a consideration. The guy was one of the better arms really in the American League for a lot of the year. So that's where it starts to get to me. Like, awards are awards, and a lot of it is fluff and fun and things to talk about for like you and I on this show. But when you have aspects to it that genuinely affect these guys' careers, both monetarily and also like service time and all these different things. We got to vet this out a little bit more. I don't know what to do. I don't know if there's like a rule that I don't know if it would skew the voting too far where, you can't vote for a player within your market. And so you're only voting on players outside of your market. I don't know. That might further complicate things. But this is something that happens all the time. And I don't know if it was as egregious this year, even as other years. I've seen it be more egregious in other years and just kind of forgot about it. You brought it up again this year and we flew through each award and you can find an instance. I don't know if it changed the way that anything placed, but if we keep doing it this way, it eventually will.
Yeah, dude, like I have no rebuttal to it. Like I have no solution. And that's the thing that we talk about all the time on this show, right? Like it's so shitty bringing up problems when you don't have a solution that's at the top of your mind. I have zero solution that's at the top
Zero
of my
solution.
mind.
But it's also just objectively hilarious.
It's awesome.
Because you
I'm
go
okay
see
with
like
it.
look, is it going to ruin my week? No, I'll forget about it by next week as well. But I
It
do
honestly
want it to
kind of
be on
made
other
my
people's.
week. If we're being totally honest, it kind of made mine.
I laughed a lot when we went through each of them. And it was like this, it was almost like mining for gems. We just keep going to each award and be like, oh, like what's going to pop up here? I mean, the fifth place for Martin. Martin was awesome. Like, don't get me wrong. But that's just so funny to me. Just objectively hilarious.
It was not a Boston-based writer, which I was stunned by. I think it was Jordan Bastian in Chicago.
So that was the one that actually didn't even count.
Yeah,
that didn't even count towards then that's not as funny. But the Yainer Diaz one was pretty funny.
Yeah,
because it wasn't just a third place, it was a second place vote. And it just seemed like it was pretty much a no-brainer. Casas. I mean, you didn't vote for one of the three finalists for second place.
No.
Like, that's crazy. And I don't think Diaz got really any other votes within the did he get a top 5 vote otherwise, top 4 vote otherwise?
Rookie of the year I think was 3. I think it was a top 3 vote, and I think Diaz got 1 second place vote and like 2 or 3 third place votes, and that was it. The one that I kind of like needed to figure out the spin zone was Bassett because he was like the one outlier. I was just like,
that was a crazy one.
Yeah, but I was just like, why is this happening here? And I scrolled and I was like, all right, it's not any of the Toronto people. Who was it? And it was a guy based out of Oakland. I was like, oh my gosh, are we still doing this? Like,
we're still doing it.
He wishes that he had Olsen and Chapman still there. Like, what's going on? Sean Manaea?
You can't vet that out. You can't vet that out. Where were you from? Are you friends with this guy? Like, what are we going to put him on? You can't do anything. It just is what it is. So again, just bringing up an issue with no solution, but it is very, very funny.
Yeah.
That said, all the Right Award winners won and everything seemed to fall the way that it should. I would have went scorched earth if somehow Tanner Bybee didn't get his full year of service time because of some homer votes. But fortunately, I don't think it's a problem because it's not a problem yet. But keep your eyes out for some of those biased votes. Just keep your eyes out. And, I think just the fact that you can just kind of hold people accountable for their votes is an important thing too, right? Like this is where social media, I think, is fair. Like, hey, can you make your case as to why Yainer Diaz was the number 2, Rookie of the Year finalist? If you can make a sound case, then sure. But I think that's one of the few instances where it's fair to say, hey, why'd you vote for Yainer second? Other than you saw him more? Like, can you make a concrete case here? And if they can, sure. But that's where social media, I think, is a better forum and actually can be beneficial. But not the fuck you. Why'd you put Yainer ahead of Tanner Bybee? But I would love to see these writers explain their votes a little bit more. Not because you need to explain anything to us, just because I think it's good content and I think it's a great way to peel back the curtain and connect with fans in the audience through the process. But for whatever reason, it feels like that's something that just doesn't seem to happen very often, whether it's Hall of Fame where some vote anonymously or don't. I always think about the coward who didn't vote for Jeter and did that anonymously. Those things are weird to me. If I'm ever fortunate enough to have a vote, I would love to peel back the curtain on the process and explain what went through it. If you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. But at least, you can't just look at it and be like, oh, Arm did this because he's friends with that guy, or Arm did this because it's a Marlin or whatever it is. Like, that's the last thing I'd ever want. And maybe it's not fair to attribute that to some of these people, but if you don't peel back the curtain, how are we supposed to know?
Right. No, come on, man. You're what is it? Zach McCambley 2029 Cy Young vote is going to be awesome. I
I'm
can't
gonna
wait
slip in that one at like the fifth place spot for
yeah,
Zach. Yeah, that's
I
gonna go
can't wait.
nuts.
Um, Another note that I kind of wanted to move to has to do with business of baseball, and it's Bally and Diamond Sports Group. And Diamond Sports Group, the Bally's pretty much went bankrupt. They filed for bankruptcy this past year. I think a lot of people know that. Bally Sports, if you know, chances are you're watching your local telecast. It was on a Bally Sports. NBC Sports is the other big one. AT&T Sportsnet has a couple, and then I think the Dodgers are still Spectrum Sportsnet, and then you have the unique RSN. So like Nesson, yes, Marquee for the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Cubs. But Bally was the main controller, and Bally is officially pulling out of baseball after the 2024 season. That was reported. So 11 teams remain that have Bally broadcasts. Two of which had already been seized by Major League Baseball. Bally did not pay the San Diego Padres for the television rights, so Major League Baseball took control of that telecast. Bally, in turn, pulled out of the Arizona Diamondbacks agreement, so Major League Baseball took control of the Diamondbacks. There is a chance that the defending World Series champs and the Texas Rangers have their local broadcast seized by Major League Baseball and produced by Major League Baseball, and Bally pulls out. I cannot believe that. The Texas Rangers will not keep their RSM, but that kind of shows you the business of television baseball. But that kind of took me to this one, and I brought this up briefly on the call up. So if you guys are hearing it for the second time, I'm sorry. But for those of you hearing it for the first time, Travis Sawchik writes for The Score, and he's done some great stuff on the television business and just the business of baseball in general. And he tweeted, the GM of the Cleveland Guardians, Chris Antonetti, cites cable revenue uncertainty as one reason the club designated Cal Quantrill for assignment. The Minnesota Twins plan to reduce payroll. The San Diego Padres were forced to take out a loan. 11 teams are still tied to Bally/Diamond and face revenue uncertainty entering the 2024 season. Going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So just like revisiting that conversation real quick, the fact that the Bally conundrum, and I guess like the soft ground that everybody stands on when it comes to financial backing from RSNs is impacting player contracts, and I never thought that we would get to that point in baseball.
Yeah, so it's funny. This is something that I did a little research on prior, like a few years back, and then just growing up a Marlins fan, I was just always trying to figure out the dollars and cents as to why my favorite team was so broke and couldn't do anything, and then just rehashing it recently as you brought up this topic and diving into it. There's no sport or league that could be more affected by this than Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball relies on regional, local broadcast for revenue more than any other sport. And actually, Sportico broke this down going into 2023. If you look at it by the four major sports, NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, according to Sportico, 23%, so nearly a quarter of MLB's individual team revenue comes from local media. I mean, that is a large chunk. For comparison, the NFL, surprise, surprise, very, very small. It's a sliver. NBA, which I think is a very comparable product in terms of frequent games, local interest, things like that, almost half at 13%. And the NHL, similar as well, 12%. So, the other main factors being national revenue, team sponsorship, concessions, seating, suites, and other. But the third biggest revenue source for Major League Baseball teams is local media. And for some, it's even more than that. If you're a smaller market team that doesn't, fill up the seats, it might be number two, could be close to number one for you because you don't make that much on the national side. And even then, even if it's number two or number three, we're not talking about a big disparity here. It's 23% on average versus 26% on national revenue and 31% on seating and suites and all of that good stuff. So, I mean, I actually understand this side of it. Generally, I'm going to say, oh, stop crying poor. That's annoying. But if you're a team like the Twins, this was, and the Padres too, two teams that had as high of a payroll as we've seen them have, and commend them for that. And fans showed up, and that's great. That helps. But you need that money coming in from your local deal. Those are big deals. So that's a side of it where, like, I actually get it. even the Guardians, they locked up Jared. They never do that. And look, maybe there's ways that they can make this work. And I'm not totally absolving them, but I do think that it's fair if you're a team like the Padres or the Twins that, has tried to transcend that small market or mid-market label that they've had on them and has spent more money than they ever have. And then you have this fall through at the worst time possible. That sucks. And really, I think the majority of the onus lays on obviously Diamond and Bally, and it's embarrassing that they bit off more than they can chew. But I actually understand to a degree these teams having to figure things out. I don't think the Twins are going to shed like crazy, but maybe that $6 million Kyle Farmer deal, like that looks a little bit shittier right now.
100%. I love that you point out the reliance on local media coverage, and particularly the RSN telecast, the regional sports network telecast, for Major League Baseball. And I want to equate it to the NBA because the NBA is a pretty easy one to palate. The NBA has an 82-game season. Now, the worst teams in the NBA, how many nationally televised games will they play? Probably 0 to 5, right? But how many nationally televised games, whether it's on TNT or ESPN, are the Boston Celtics going to play this year? 20? That's
the Lakers.
That's a quarter of their season. That's 20 of the 82. How many nationally televised games is a Major League Baseball team going to play? How about the Atlanta Braves? Okay, let's say they're on Sunday Night Baseball 8 times, right? Let's say they're on TBS or Fox another combined 10 times. All right, so that's 18 nationally televised games. 18 out of 162 compared to 20 out of 82. There's your difference, folks.
Yep.
That's the reliance.
Yeah. And the deals have been really profitable for these major league teams in the past and for the RSN providers, generally speaking, if you run your company semi-decently. Obviously, Bally has not done that. I mean, they're really like casino, right? Am I wrong about that? Like it's
Bally. I know Bally's is like a casino that, is in Vegas, and I think there's one in Anderson, Indiana. Like it's just one of those like fever dream things that I see.
Just doesn't make sense. But what's interesting to me is that most of these teams are, and this is another aspect that I know Sportico dove into, is that most teams are leaders in their regional market in terms of ratings. Like ratings have been strong locally for most teams. RSNs were the number one program in prime time on cable in 22 of 29 markets last year, despite the cord cutting. What's interesting here is this might just end up, I think, expediting an inevitable aspect of what was going to happen in the way that sports are consumed anyways, which is our generation and the generation, coming behind us, generally being cable cutters anyways.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why they're struggling to make ends meet and everything.
For sure.
But it's only going to get worse in terms of cutting the cable. And that's why we've seen the Apple TV deals and we've seen the league try to spread out coverage, and that pissed people off too.
But we are
maybe the best option is to just centrally do it, because MLB always talks about how the watched hours on MLB TV are better than ever. And you know what? NBA League Pass, they really mastered that side of things. You still have your local broadcasts that you lean into, but and I know that's a challenge now because who's going to be, providing the resources, who's going to be employing, these broadcasters. It's a little complex, but I think there's a way that you can figure this out to where it's more centralized. There might be cons to this that I'm not thinking about because we're just talking out loud here, but at the same time, we're going to have to go down that route eventually anyways, because the next generation, there's not going to be enough people watching on cable for this to survive as is. So maybe this is just a blessing in disguise to expedite a process that was probably going to happen anyways.
I feel like we're trying to steal some thunder from Andrew Marchand of the New York Post, and we're just not going to do it effectively. But it is like kind of a sports media conversation, and it's a fascinating one. I will say from the broadcaster perspective, especially on the television side, typically, as is I think it's like 80% of, Major League Baseball teams. And I bet that number is pretty close when it comes to the NBA and the NHL as well. Those broadcasters are employed by the organization and not by Bally. or not by NBC Sports, like that kind of thing. So I like the Cubs. I think the Cubs announcers are Cubs employees. The Tigers announcers are Tigers employees. White Sox are White Sox employees, that kind of thing. Which, is fascinating.
Slippery slope if you look at what just happened in, with Kevin Brown in Baltimore.
Right. Exactly. So it's
very complex issue.
It's layered. And like the parting thought I have on that is I just kind of want to understand the dollars and cents more than I do about the Suns way of going about it. Matt Ishbia pulled from Bally, and he's putting on like local, I think it's the local CBS affiliate, is picking up Suns games. And obviously you can still get it on League Pass. So I want to know, like, hey, does that work on local TV on a local network affiliate instead of cable? Because if that works, then hey, that's great. And that's a moneymaker there. But I do think that while the older generation may have hated ESPN Plus originally, and while the older generation may have hated the Apple TV deal and the Peacock deal, that's where we're headed. I think Netflix wants the in-season tournament in the NBA. I saw that.
I saw that, which is crazy. Here's the reality of it too. And the last thing I'll say is, look, I don't know if we have the exact answer right now. And there's people, as you mentioned, like Andrew Martian and people involved in the business
that know way more
on it than we do. But it is important to just talk about that it's a layered thing and that there are some other options out there. I think that's the biggest thing is there's a lot of options now. With the way that we're trending and the way that content and games and video, everything can be consumed.
That's the thing. The product's never been better. The content, the distribution has never been better. How can we harness that energy in a positive way? Because we're in a really good spot.
I think they'll figure it out. I wouldn't bet on the blackout league. I was going to say Major League Blackout. Yeah, just being able to figure this thing out. But we'll see.
We'll see. A team that is in a very curious situation is the LA Angels, and they officially announced Ron Washington as their new manager. And Perry Manassian had some interesting thoughts when it came to the LA Angels. And I'm just, summarizing right now. I'm not going to pull anything verbatim, but he pretty much said that 2024 is not a rebuilding season and they plan to be aggressive in free agency. So I ask you straight up, is anybody going to want to sign with the LA Angels?
No, because if they don't play well, I don't want to get thrown on way. Look at what happened to Matt Moore this year. We talked about that, right? Like, that guy got tossed around like a rag doll. I don't want to deal with that. Also, I don't want to be within 100 feet of Anthony Rendon. That guy is just bad vibes, just purely bad vibes. That's just point blank, period. Yeah. And I'll wear that. I just saw your face.
He is. He is. Yeah.
He stinks. He stinks. I don't want to play with that dude. And beyond that, it's just, you look at the team. Where are you becoming competitive? Let's assume you lose Shohei Ohtani. Yes, you have Mike Trout. You're hoping he's healthy. This is what roster resource has right now. And like Perry Manassian, I actually really respect a lot of things he's done in the game. And I honestly think that he's almost been like just beaten to a pulp by the situation that he inherited. And then the owner that he has above him that is just Artie Moreno. We don't have to even get into that. But this is the team. And he has to pretend and try to box this up and sell this and say, hey, no, we can add some guys. Luis Rengifo at second base, Mike Trout in center field, which they got to get him out of center. Brandon Drury would be the DH, Taylor Ward in left, Anthony Rendon at third base, if he feels like it, Mickey Moniak in right field. Then you'd have Logan O'Hoppe at catcher king. You'd have Nolan Shanwell at first base and Zach Neto at short. So here, when I look at this team, I see, wow, you got your shortstop of the future. Wow, you got your catcher of the future. Wow, your first-round pick actually held his own at first base, despite you inexplicably rushing him up there. You've got three core pieces there. Taylor Ward is still on the younger side of 30. Rengifo is actually young and is a decent piece. Why would you not be embracing sustainable winning? And we're not even getting into the pitching staff, by the way. How are you gonna make this one look nice, Jack? Reed Detmers, Griffin Canning, Patrick Sandoval, Tyler Anderson, Chase Silseth. Put lipstick on that pig, please. What's the plan? This is a team that was so broke or at least so afraid of the tax. I wouldn't say broke. They had a high payroll. So it's so afraid of the luxury tax that they literally publicly humiliated themselves by just putting a bunch of players on waivers that they had recently traded for.
Let me try and
How are you going to now spend a bunch of money and make this team better? We know how expensive a lot of these pitching free agents are going to be. And I'll just leave it to you. Where do you start, Jack? And we're going to do our playing GM episode. I don't want to like spend 20 minutes on this, but are there three moves that you can make to make this team a playoff contender?
No. I think you probably need 5 or 6. I'm going to try and put lipstick on this pig. And I don't.
Oh, by the way, worst farm system in Major League Baseball well. I might add again. And I want the listener quick thought exercise. Who is the Angels' top prospect if Nolan Shanwell graduated? You don't need to be a prospect head, but if you are a prospect head, you're probably still struggling with that question. Think. I don't know either. That's the point. I don't know. So anyway, back to you.
Yeah, no, I said. You asked me that question in the car. You were like, who's the Angels' top prospect? And I was like, Kyron Perez? Like,
the guy who they brought up and then sent back down. And my answer would probably be Caden Dana, a pitcher who they overslot in the 11th round a couple years ago, who I actually think is good, but like good is relative.
Yeah, but like we're not talking about any top 100 guys here. We're not talking about maybe a top 200 guy right here.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. Let's see. I'm going to try and spin zone the rotation into being something good. Detmers, I think, has the shit. I think he has really struggled at points for a couple months at a time, but the flashes are enough for me. And there's a lot of bias there for me because I saw him after his freshman year. Patrick Sandoval has the occasional really strong start where I'm like, oh, this guy's absolutely a 3 in Major League Baseball. Griffin Canning, UCLA, noted good baseball program. Tyler Anderson, I liked the deal last year. It's my only take on that. Chase Silseth, fun changeup at points. Was that good? Did I nail it?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay.
Yeah, you crushed that. Good. David Fletcher takes over this year. I think this is his year. But the point being, like, and like, just to be serious for a second.
Yeah.
Really tough situation for Perry to be in. Yeah. And I think that if you are trying to, and I think part of it is they haven't given up on the Ohtani pipe dream and they want to keep Trout happy. Those two things, you have to say, hey, we're not rebuilding. Hey, we're not rebuilding. Hey, we're not rebuilding. But with that same notion, this team, if you told me what's the best way to win a World Series within the next decade, what's the most likely scenario to win a World Series within the next 10 years? It's trade Mike Trout. It's trade Reed Detmers. It's built around Neto and Ohapi and hopefully Shanwell, and you can hold on to Ward, but it's trade Brendan Drury. You can actually get good returns for some of these guys.
It's trade Sandoval too.
It's trade Sandoval. And you say, oh, well, what do they have left? You'll get some big league pieces back. You'll bring some guys up. And what's funny is that team is not even that much worse. The Trout part would hurt a lot, but he's barely available. And even if you want to keep Trout, that's fine. Just say that guy's retiring an Angel. We want him here forever. That's fine. Trade Reed Detmers, trade Taylor Ward, then trade Brendan Drury. You're going to load that farm system up and at least have some sort of direction. Yeah. They're never going to do that. You know that. And we're just going to see this team be in purgatory and continue to waste whatever's left of Mike Trout's career and really just embarrass themselves with no direction whatsoever. That comment was surprising to me, but not surprising at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like what's he gonna say? I'm with you. Like it's one of those where I think he knew he was setting himself up to get ratioed into oblivion, but you do it anyways. And you know, that's kind of where we're at. So okay, say they don't trade Trout. I think the only way you kind of kickstart this thing this year is by trading Mike Trout. But if they don't, and they just want him to go into the hall wearing the Angels hat and he's there for his whole year, or he's there for his whole career. Okay, you're right. Trade Detmers, trade Drury, trade Ward, trade Sandoval, trade Estevez. Estevez can get you a big league everyday player. Trade Herget. Man, it's just like deploy everything you possibly can. And I'm not talking go get low A guys. I'm talking like go get 2 AAA guys in return for Jimmy Herget.
Do what the White Sox did in a lot of ways, I think, right? Like, well, funny enough, the guy you gave the White Sox. They'll probably use him at some point this coming year. But that's the side of it that's interesting for me. But you just can't look at an outfield of Moniak, Ward, and then hopefully Trout and say, okay, yeah, we're gonna win some ball games here. Shanwell at first base, like he's gonna have the lowest first base slugging percentage in the entire sport. And then again, you're praying that Anthony Rendon plays, and then if he plays, what is he, a 2-win player? So it's an interesting spot for them to be in. I don't see how you can spend your way out of this one either, because they're still pretty tied up financially between the Rendon and the Trout contracts. They're also paying, some other guys a decent amount that still have like that's tied to them. It's a weird spot. The only answer I would have is play Trey Cabbage. You need to play Trey Cabbage next year. And that's move number one.
Is Joe Cabbage in still on
damn lineup? Joe Adele, no, screw Joe Adele. Trey Cabbage is the guy. And then you figure the rest out.
And Michael Stefanik. Don't forget about Stefanik.
Oh my God, that'd be so fire. But yeah, realistically, what do you think? What's your prediction for the Angels next year? Are they better than that roster resource lineup or worse?
Worse. Because if they don't do anything.
So they lied? Did they end up trading guys away?
I don't know if they trade guys away. I think one of them's going to get hurt.
That's fair.
I think one of them's going to get hurt. And I don't think they can convince anyone to come. They have no trade capital.
That's the thing too. They're a laughable organization.
If you have an identical deal, okay, say for a 3-year deal, because the guys that make a difference are not signing 1-year deals. The guys that are going to make a difference for the LA Angels are signing 3-year deals, 4-year deals. Say that you as the LA Angels offer $20 million more total across 4 years, so 5 more a year than another comparable team. We're talking about the difference between 80 and 100. To be honest, I think a lot of players that are capable of signing 4-year deals would maybe prefer to sign a 4-year 80 in a better situation than 4 years 100, knowing they're signing up for like just clumsy 162. Yeah.
You know what's their best bet? Just their prayer. Japanese market. Get Imanaga. Go get Jung-Hoo Lee. You can get those guys for 140 probably combined. And then but even then that team still stinks.
Still stink.
You get those guys, you get Heimer Candelario. Is that team good?
No.
You just signed 3 of the top 15 free agents and spent $200 million. Oh, but Jack, they can make a trade.
No,
they can't. What's Joe Adele getting you? So that's where they lose me. That's where I don't get it. That's just where it doesn't make sense. You sign Gurriel, Jung-Hoo Lee, but you know who they're going to sign, right? They're going to sign Teoscar Hernandez.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's going to give you 1.8 F4. But they add Teoscar for 70 million, let's say. They add Imanaga for another 80 million. That's 160 right there. Then you add one more guy, and now you're at $200 million, and your team still stinks. Why would you do that? No, what's the point?
You don't.
So
pack it.
It's fascinating, and I am looking forward to that whole show this year. I think it's going to be a fun show. Yeah. They're like the reality TV show that you almost don't tell anybody you watch because you're like embarrassed about it. Right. It's like, I'm above that. I'm too smart to watch that show, but you just can't help but just revel and enjoy the chaos and just that somebody could live like that.
So that was I think the common answer is Bachelor in Paradise, but for me that was Love Island USA. Because Love Island UK, I think there's some structure there. I think
that's actually that's a good show.
Yeah, I think the neurons are firing. But Love Island USA, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you guys? Or maybe Too Hot to Handle is probably the better example of that one. But that was fascinating. That was a great watch. Last thing for me is Christopher Morel some sort of God type figure? What's up? SNY had an article that popped on my feed on Thursday afternoon. And apparently there's belief within the Cubs organization that Christopher Morel could be the centerpiece player in a return for Pete Alonso if the Mets do make Pete Alonso available. David Stearns has said he doesn't foresee Pete Alonso hitting the trade market. But if he does, Morel, the Cubs think, could be the main guy that goes back. A couple weeks ago, there was a report that Morel could be the main guy going back in a Juan Soto deal. And I ask, why do the Cubs think that Morel and Filler can net them the best run producer in baseball over the last half decade, or the modern day Ted Williams?
Yeah, they don't know where to stick him either. So like their usage of, and Morel's a good player. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, 26 homers in
they're
107
talking,
games.
but they're talking about him being a first base DH.
Yeah, well, that's also the thing. Like, this guy's tooled out, and they don't know where to stick him, and that part is like bizarro to me, and also is like a little bit concerning. Last year in the outfield, -4 outs above average. Last year at third base, -1 defensive run save. Last year at second base, actually 1 defensive run save. There you go. You got him at second base. Great spot for a guy with the 80 arm and plus speed, right? So you're limiting him, but at the same time, he's kind of limiting himself. He also strikes out 31% of the time. How can you convince me that this wasn't like a P-Wiz fever dream? This could have been a Patrick Wisdom. Like, I hit a lot of home runs in a small spurt, struck out a lot, can't quite match it again. I think Morel is way more talented and should be a good big leaguer for a long time. But when I'm getting a centerpiece back, I either want a prospect with massive upside that, I feel really good about, and that's risky. Any prospect is. Or if I'm getting a young big leaguer, I want to be positive that that guy's a big league regular right away. And I don't know if I can say with the utmost confidence that Christopher Morel, I mean, he's a big league regular, but is much more than a 2 to 2.5 win player, 3-win player, at his 75th percentile outcome. I mean, even in 107 games last year, the guy accumulated a 1.4 FWAR despite hitting 26 home runs.
Yeah.
It's what happens when you don't walk. It's what happens when you don't play a lot of defense. And also, like, the fact that Morel is always the first guy you're dangling when you have one of the best farm systems in Major League Baseball. And you're trying to win now.
Guess what?
That tells me everything.
Yeah, exactly. That diminishes his value when it's, Morel and others. Morel. The more times you float that name and that name becomes public, that in turn decreases his value. Think about the value of Andujar and Clint Frazier when it became a joke. The first time it was great. The 28th time it sucked. Like that's the thing, man. So each time we say, Morel could be the piece here. Morel could be the piece. But then we still see more about how the Cubs are trying to fit Morel into the jigsaw puzzle and they just can't find the right fit there. It's like, okay, you've diminished his value at this point by like a decently noticeable margin, which stinks because I've heard Morel is a great guy. He's clearly he's an electric. Yeah, he's fun. He's clearly an electric player. He's the closest thing Chicago's had to Javier Baez since Baez kind of fell from his MVP level stature, and Morel's never going to be an MVP candidate. But in this era of baseball, in 23 and 24, we are looking for WAR accumulators. And if you are moving a guy that is almost a lock to give you 120 runs driven in Pete Alonso, or literally a lock to give you a 400 OBP in Juan Soto and walk 100 times, you need a WAR accumulator coming back as the centerpiece. You don't need 30 homers. You need 5 wins.
Especially because you can find guys that can hit you 30 homers and give you nothing else. Like, those guys are out and about. And honestly, blatantly overlooked a lot of times. The other side of it that's really interesting is, Morel's a good player and he comes with a ton of control, but you got 2 years of control of Pete Alonso, and then you have 1 year of, like you said, the modern day Ted. It's going to need to be more than that. What's fascinating is, again, when you have that system, and maybe it's Morel and then the prospects, and they're hoping that just doesn't allow them to, fully deplete the farm system. But I thought that was fascinating. Regardless, the larger point here, though, the Cubs are ready to go. Like, they're ready to make a splash. And I do want to broaden it real quick to the fact that they've got assets, man. And Morel is still an asset. Right? And that's, I don't want that to be lost in translation here. Morel is a good asset. Maybe liken him to, I think, a solid top 100 prospect, to be honest. That's kind of what I like, a back end top 100 guy, really, or maybe a little bit better than that. I don't think he's much more or much less than that, because you have to also notice, like, they've already burned more than a year of his service time as well. So you're with a prospect, you've got clock unstarted. So that's a side of it as well. But I feel like this Cubs team is going to make their splash one way or another. And just the way that they're able to monitor, they've got Morel, they've got Mervis, who's kind of blocked as well, another piece that they can trade. And then they've got the high profile prospects. I don't think they're moving PCA, and I don't think they're moving Cade Horton, but they've got several other guys with plenty of intrigue that could get moved. But again, they'd rather move Morel than Horton, than PCA, which I totally get, but kind of tells you something.
Can I throw you one?
What?
Like just something that would get Pete Alonso to Wrigley. Alonso, you get 2 years of Pete Alonso. Alonso for Morel, Kevin Alcantara, and Matt Mervis.
Well, you just made him the centerpiece. Who's more valuable there, Morel or Alcantara?
I don't know. But like
I just saw Alcantara in the AFL, and there's some swing and miss there. I could see the Mets loving that though, like just loving the profile.
It's like the way that I kind of read it was okay. Morel and fillers. I don't think Alcantara and Matt Mervis are fillers.
Yeah, that's true. Like this is the centerpiece. Like no, he's one of like 2 to 3 main pieces here. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate that at all. Owen Casey too. Like that's another name that they could be dangling there. I like Casey more than Alcantara, but I think most of the industry doesn't. So like that, yeah. I mean, that's a good trade. Mervis can plug right in at first, see what he can do.
Yeah. So he's your immediate fix.
Morel is immediately playing somewhere, wherever you want to try to figure him out in the jigsaw. And then, yeah, I mean, I think the point is they can make like 5 or 6 iterations of that trade with a Jackson Ferris, who has a ton of interest. Jordan Wicks could even be dangled, even though they could use him. That's a guy that could have interest. You're not letting that guy stop you from getting Pete Alonso.
My thought is trade from your hitter surplus.
Yes, I'm with you on that. And they've got the ability to do so. So I'm interested to see, how they handle it, but I think they're going to make their splash. You think they could get Ohtani, right? You said that.
Yeah, I do think that they can get Ohtani. I think they're going to get one of Ohtani or Yamamoto. I don't think it's going to be Yamamoto. I think that if Ohtani is not a Giant, he's a Cub. And like we'll save our.
Those are my 2 finalists too. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I don't see like I'm going to say it, and you guys are going to hate me because it's going to happen. I don't see a world where Shohei Ohtani is an LA Dodger next year. I know he's the betting favorite.
I hope you're right, dude. I got nothing against the Dodgers, but I'm just sick of it. Like that Scherzer and Trey Turner deal, like that was the last straw for me. I'm just like, enough. Although I love this year's Dodgers. A lot of fun. I loved the James Outmans getting chances and stuff like that. Like they traded for Miguel Rojas on purpose. Like that was refreshing.
Jason Hayward's career revival was excellent.
Yeah, this was a refreshing Dodgers team. I'm sure fans would very much disagree. I'm sure Walker would disagree, but it was refreshing for me, man. I'm sick of that shit. So that was fun.
I'm picturing like the poster that they'll put right outside of Dodger Stadium above like the home plate entrance, and it's going to be Ohtani, Freeman, Mookie, Kershaw, Bueller. Like,
yeah, I'm done watching baseball.
I'm walking. No, I mean I'll watch every Walker start.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm gonna watch those Walker starts. Will be electric. Last thing, A's acquire Abraham Toro. Your thoughts?
Yeah, great. He's going to love Vegas. Does he still have control in the 28th season? I'd assume not.
Do you know what he hit last year?
204.
444.
Really?
444, 524, 778 slash line in 9 games.
That's so gas. How many plate appearances?
21.
Was he
8 for 18 with 2 homers? I think the common A's fleece.
Wow, he and Aledmus Diaz are going to be generational on the left side of the infield.
Yep.
I'm in. Shout out the future Las Vegas A's. We were thinking about like, hey, maybe making that a headline, but it was just going to be us yelling like, oh, what a shame, shame on John Fisher again.
I'm just tired of talking about it. We'll wrap up with the fact that just I saw something from Jeff Passan, who I think he wrote that in the closing part of his piece about it, unanimously getting approved by the owners, that Fisher was somewhere, a restaurant, something, and fans were kind of yelling at him to sell the team, don't keep it here, whatever. This is terrible for us, whatever. And he said, it's been a lot worse for me than it's been for you guys. Shut up.
Disagree.
Yeah, why are you moving the team? Because you're going to make a lot more money. So shut up.
Well, and Passan tweeted out this quote from him. A's owner John Fisher, quote, "Today is an incredibly difficult day for Oakland A's fans. It's a great day for Las Vegas."
He said that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. Every link. Yeah.
John Fisher, you suck.
And with that, every link you need is in the episode description. Get your Just Baseball merch. Recently made its way to our New York office, and it is burning a hole in the cardboard box that it's hanging out in. So get your merch. Let's see. Yeah, I already said the link thing. We'll talk to you guys next week. Cool? See ya.